and smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Welcome to the future. Shit where you please. The Wi-Fi's killer, but there's no more bees, so there's hardly any flowers, there are very few trees, and you'll pay $1,000 for some honey for your tea. But we got these awesome collars, mine's an Apple Model 3. It allows for better movement than the Tesla X Elite. It lets you customize the ads that it implants in every dream, and for premium subscribers doesn't shock you in your sleep. But it doesn't stop there. It can analyze your speech, and if it hears disinformation, then it notifies police. It's a swift re-education, but it knocks you off your feet like your booster every 7th week. I faced the future boldly with 2 eager open eyes, and I picked a couple nuggets up that blew my fucking mind, like you can taxidermy someone while they're technically alive, and they'll shine when it's election time. See, the Democratic voter base will pay them zero. Never mind if voting for the scarecrow is a vote along their party lines. They could stare into its marble eyes and claim there's something dignified. Unlike real politicians, this one doesn't need an oxygen or kit supply. But its function is the same as those who came before. The goals are never misaligned. It still spends all its working time performing pre-recorded fleecing sessions where it sugarcoats your slow and hungry genocide, while pouring billions into Nazi coffers, all the while selling you the story that we're moments till the MiGs arrive. So fuck it, ask Zelensky if he'll help replace our leaded pipes. Watch a fleet of Penske's show, stacks of bills in every size. Guess it only took a black sun and a couple hiles. Honorary goose step and some Nazi boots a quarter mile, all while Biden sneers his sordid smile. I don't know what was in this morning's vial, but it makes him stare 1,000 yards through all the prompters and the cards like he can smell the nearest child. His eyes are wide and wild, wider than the grave in which another 1,000 families were tossed in as I typed until they rose up to the sky unceremoniously piled. Which sort of flies right in the face of all this network ticker tape where the American economy has superhuman vitals.
And sometimes some people come along with a hammer.
See, I like to think my trial's gonna play like a recital. I'll denounce the world around me and accuse the most entitled, who weaponize their titles, whose pull is something title, who'd starve us all to death to best delight their blinded idol. So they might destroy the record, and I will never get to vinyl. So my word is not immortal, but it's final.
It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Land of the free, and you'll know us by the trail of dead. It's just one more world war to complete the set. When you live by the pike, you die by the pith. You die wide-eyed, still pleading the fifth, or crying divine epithets and pathetic attempts at defense. All empathetic for those on your side of the fence. Well, I'll gladly put you and your legacy into an alternate tense of faltering senses and altered events. Like hun, it ain't a hearse, it's a reaper's stretch. How sweet, she said. Bunch of hordes in the street like it's Evil Dead. Where the thin blue line meets razor's edge. And where the corporate ladder ascends to a steel-toed boot that awaits on the ledge. You'll be licking it fresh at your boss's request till it stomps each finger and watches you fall to your death and drown in an ocean of debt. Gone with the fodder who gathered to honor the patient left, who purity tested themselves into sections, step by step, till the next election, when it's just one them and the sound of their well-read theorized breath. That's harm reduction for the lowly cost of you holding your nose and just openly buying the theft. Maybe that's all in the flick of the pen. Maybe we're all one unmarked van from a trip to the pen, being guarded by pigs who exist on a diet of dying breaths of much worthier men. Honey, heaven's expecting you. Just don't get too hung up on who they let in. Just look up at the shine of the pearly gates. You don't need to worry if there's lead in the paint. You don't need to worry if there's lead in the water, lead in the milk, lead in the honey, lead in the caustic embrace of the Heavenly Father. Lead is the flavor of passive perpetual slaughter. Lead is the taste of us led to the ledge by the lure of the legend of expert consensus, and then beckon to stretch it just one step farther. And I hope all the folks who were boastfully gloating and toasting themselves as the heroes of COVID for boosting their boosters and doing their part are now equally thrilled to be starstruck martyrs, all laid in a government grave with anonymous markers, like you're back from the carvers and off to the splicer. You're the very first wave to be slain in the war against Pfizer, that 100 years war against Pfizer. They are thinning the crowd that is striking right now to bleed adequate pay from those inhuman misers, who all sit in their office and designate coffins to people regarded as nothing but profit for Kaiser. Still the Dems want you nicer. Dems want you softer. Dems want you kinder. Yeah, they all want you graciously starving in silence. You will speak when you're spoken to. Rest of the time, you and all of us peasants are merely depressing statistics neglected in Congress's binders. All bled, bone dry, then fed to the grinder. Our headstones line each step as reminders. That's a lesson in object permanence learned in the furnace by workers consigned to the fire. Workers bled, bone dry, then fed by the fed to the grinder. Fed by the fed to the grinder. Now the Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide in your sighs unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Now the Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide in your sighs unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. And the Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide in your sighs unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, bleeds you dry, then dines on the dead. The Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide in your sighs unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. The Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide in your sighs unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, and you'll see that it's fed. Never you'll mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide in your sighs unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, you'll see that it's fed. Never you'll mind that it grinds your mind, that it grinds yourself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe?
Fresh off the masses, the brand new cancerous growth, who has come here to vie for your vote. Come here to cry at the camps and to mourn at the shore for the bodies that float by the wreck of an immigrant boat. Then it's back to their luxury home, couple security booths and a moat. Couple cigars, little escargot, little booze and a soak. Just breathe in the steam and the smoke. Pink salt, lavender, candles are low. Shit, when you do what you do, gotta lighten the load. And he got a life of his own that's a sight to behold. And it's a lot to control, to decipher the code or to siphon the soul. The cost of a good night's sleep for the working elite is a bargain, no matter the toll. Worth any wager, and that comes straight from the mouth of the means to the goal that will swallow us whole. Right for the picking if you don't mind mold, and you know I don't. Maybe we're pleasantly prone, maybe we're taking a licking, compliantly ticking and ticking and ticking, but never explode. No, I don't deliver the prettiest image, but damn if it isn't an accurate vision of natural fission, of rage at the system and abject heartbreak, patiently waiting for any who will listen. That little blue bird who was watching your words is a federal carrier pigeon, a Langley first. It's a patient observer who hears what it wants and is trained for the worst. Oh, you got nothing to hide. They'll be the ones to decide that after they root through your purse, after they read all your text, after they raid your apartment, confiscate all of its contents, then conjure up evidence out of the air on a wing and a prayer and malicious intelligence nonsense. Any presumption of innocence long since gone, right along with your comforts and constants. Historically first they will come for the communists. So why in the fuck would I say I'm a communist? Well, it might be I love my community more than the monsters of opulence who are holding us hostage, who are vomiting promises. Might be I'm all done seeing our pensions and benefits harvested. Might be I'm all done watching the populace being disarmed in the guise of an armistice. Watching a woman collapse on the floor who will rise no more. She is wheeled out the door and you're next in line for the pharmacist. If you can get me to vote, it's a hard no confidence. But part of the charm of deception is politics wearing the mask of incompetence. It's all in the art of austerity, darling. It's all in the slide of the providence. Until home is as wide as your cubicle height and is only as deep as your coffin is. Maybe I'm miles away from impatience, aching to break off the head of the snake where the capital lust, reptile brain, and the margin of profit is. Like off with his. Like off with his.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe,
What's up, everybody? It's another episode of Iron and News. I've got the names right. I've got everything together. Things are running. Rockfin's on. Rumble's going. It's me, Reef Breland, and my co-host, Collin Radix-Carter, aka Care Bear. How are you, Care Bear?
I am not bad. How are you,
Nice.
sir?
I'm okay. I'm doing all right. But we got people in the chat coming in. Make sure you like and share, subscribe. We appreciate you doing all the things to support us.
Yes, do.
So, anything we should mention right offhand?
We actually were good little boys and did some extra segments earlier this week that we're very excited to premiere. We'll talk about those later.
Yep.
And yeah, should we talk about our anniversary stream?
Yeah, in 2 weeks, right? It's on the
2 weeks. So
29th.
The 29th. Well, technically, apparently, checking the dates, March 30th of last year was when we did our very first That Reef dragged me kicking and screaming.
To streaming.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
to do INN News for the first time. So March 30th was the date, but given that we do this Wednesdays, March 29th is when we're choosing as our 1-year anniversary. And we did confirm for a while, but he confirmed today, special guest will be Rod Durgan.
Yay, Robert Durden.
Who,
Political Fight Club.
At least on YouTube, Political Fight Club. He now has a show on Rockfin, which is actually kind of appropriate given that he was, I believe, our first guest when we started INN News. So nice to come full circle and having him again. Plus, we haven't on stream for a while, so it'd be good for us to check in with him and for him to give his hot takes, depending what the news stories are for that week.
Oh, and shout out Jesse Jett, who likes to give us his music to roll before we go live every time. So, usually can check him out Tuesdays, American Tradition. We rolled his Misty Winston show yesterday when he was on TNT Radio with her. That went well.
Which is up check that out on the page, so go check that out.
Yep.
Yeah, we should have Jesse on at some point too, because we also have not had.
We'll mention it at the end of the thing as well, but you have a show tomorrow airing 9 p.m. with your colleague Gabrielle DeBose, right? That's her name.
Well, not a show, an interview.
Yes.
So I did. So we pre-recorded it over the weekend, so it will premiere tomorrow morning, and then you did an interview with who on Tuesday?
The great and powerful Gordon Dimmack, award-winning UK journalist. I'm sure he's got an award somewhere, right?
Yeah,
probably.
So yeah, hopefully. So Emmy and you did an interview with him.
Yep.
And that will premiere on Friday. Also, I believe at 9.
Yep.
9 a.m.
It's going to be great. We got some clips up to put up on Twitter for people to share. It's going to be a good time. But we brought some stories this week.
We do.
If you want to get into it.
So I'll do my stories I pulled first. So God mentioned Sinema. It's been a while since, I don't think we've really talked about her much, if at all, here.
Right.
But she is connected to the Silicon Valley Bank destruction, I will say. But it's not just her, as one would guess, given that Sinema is bought, hence other Democrats were also bought. So we'll talk about that. And then I introduced a bill. No, not kidding. I helped to craft a bill that one of my DC councilmen, Robert Wright, just released today, actually.
Okay.
But this has been something that my advocacy group has worked on for the past year, and we collaborated with Robert Wright to get this together. So now the proposal is out in connection to our city budget of how to support teachers. So it needs to be voted on. So that's the next step. So yeah, but as I said, I helped to craft what is now in the bill. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. And actually, if you watch the interview tomorrow, we'll talk more about the issues in depth, or at least some of the things that we kind of worked on for this. So
Yep.
definitely watch that. And then what do you got, Reef?
I wanted to talk about pushing Biden left. Hopefully the 90s babies in chat will get the push it over there meme.
Yeah, well, Reef had to kind of explain it to me since I do not watch SpongeBob. I know of SpongeBob. I haven't really watched an episode. Like by the time SpongeBob came out, I was like in college. So
right.
So yeah.
I mean, another great time to watch that. A little bit of weed, some Captain Crunch. You would have had a good time, man. I'm just saying. You'd still have a good time. They still hold up.
I'm sure.
And I also brought Illinois got guaranteed paid leave. I wanted to get into the little nitty-gritty of that. It's interesting how that's working. And what it's allowing businesses to do. We'll get into it, but yeah. But yeah, I wanted to talk about pushing Biden left specifically with the Willow project. If people have not been following that. But anyway, you want to get started?
Should we get started with that story? Sure.
Yep. So push Biden left, is what I titled this. You know, I saw over the weekend that, Biden approved, what do they call it? The oil project in Alaska, right? Here's the meme in case people didn't know. We should take Bikini Bottom and push it somewhere else, says Patrick. So I think if I use this button, it goes there. And then if I do it, no, I had to do this and then exit out of here. And then that would have worked. So, nope. One more. Jesus Christ. Here, let's just go here. Why was that hard to get to? So case study, put together this little video from the Sinema about it, that this was taken before he approved it, right? So we'll get into that a bit. You might have seen this if you watched the lovely Sabrina Salvati, which we'll get to in a second.
In our Earth Matters series, the Biden administration is expected to make a decision soon on whether to approve a controversial oil drilling project in Alaska. And while there has been bipartisan support from the state's lawmakers and some native groups for the Willow project, there is also a tremendous amount of pushback from climate activists in Alaska and beyond. Here's CNN's Renee Marsh.
At this point, the only way that this project can be stopped is if...
On TikTok and Instagram, calls for President Biden to stop Willow project, an urgent call that's gone viral to block a controversial Alaska oil drilling project.
Please help stop Willow.
The videos racking up tens of millions of views, spurring more than 1 million letters to the White House and more than 3 million signatures to a Change.org petition.
In order to stop Willow, people need to know about Willow.
20-year-old Elise Joshi, a senior at the University of California, Berkeley, is one of the social media activists.
Will not just impact Alaska, it will not just impact this country, it'll impact the world. With the amount of carbon emissions that it will emit, we will see an increase in frequency and intensity of natural disasters.
ConocoPhillips' Willow project would be located in northwest Alaska on the National Petroleum Reserve, federal land.
So what do you see there, Care Bear? Just on this map alone here, right? So this is where they want to drill.
Right.
Okay. What do you see near it?
A river.
And a lake here, and this whole watershed, you know, up here. So, like, that ecosystem, which I'm betting is pretty important, you know, is going to be massively affected.
Right. And roughly the size of Indiana. The project
the size of Indiana. Okay.
Would tap as much as 600 million barrels of oil, but it would take years for it to make it to market.
There it is right there.
It's messy politics for President Biden, pitting his climate promises against the desire to produce energy at home and lower gas prices. The project would release as much planet-warming carbon emissions per year as adding 2 million gas-powered cars to the road annually. That's according to a government estimate.
Loss of taste and smell, dizziness.
Sikanik Maupin's family lives near the proposed site, and she recently traveled to Washington to protest outside the White House against the Willow project, despite its economic benefits.
We've been held in an economic hostage situation. We either choose our health, our children's health, our ways of life, or being able to have plumbing and infrastructure and running water.
Nagruk Hasharik's family has also lived in the region for generations. He supports the project. His nonprofit represents 24 Native communities, corporations, and local governments who say the project would be an economic boon and help the U.S. wean off of foreign oil.
The economics that a project like this would.
What do they call that?
I'm confused. Like, why would you support it?
Well, yes, but I want you to listen to what they called the people who supported it, right?
Infrastructure and running water.
Nagruk Hasharik's family has also lived in the region for generations. He supports the project. His nonprofit represents 24 Native communities, corporations, and local governments.
Represents how many corporations? She just said.
Right. No, they're not nonprofit then.
Right. They're nonprofit in name only.
The project would be an economic boon and help the U.S. wean off of foreign oil.
The economics that a project like this would bring into the region, mainly to the North Slope Borough in the form of taxes to help provide and maintain first world conditions.
Meantime, the Arctic is warming 4 times faster than anywhere else on the planet due to climate change.
We cannot keep drilling for new fossil fuels if we want to address climate change.
Well, ConocoPhillips tells CNN in a statement that this project will create, quote, good union jobs in the.
I love how now it's like, oh, you care about unions, but when it came to railroad workers, you didn't give a damn.
Yep, and will lessen reliance on foreign oil, which of course they're wanting to do, right? So,
the project has undergone a comprehensive regulatory process for nearly 5 years with extensive input. And Erica, we could see that decision come from the Biden administration as soon as next week.
All right, we'll be watching for it, Renee. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So that was week before, right?
Right.
We'll get into some other stuff with this, but thoughts so far? Anything
besides the bullshit?
Yeah, I mean, it's bullshit.
This is what people voted for, folks.
Yep. So,
like I believe I saw a tweet from who is it, Emma Figland, who was like, I think this was back in 2020 when she was like, yeah, like there's many things that you shouldn't like Biden for, but climate change should be one of them, or something toward those lines. So basically, she was making the case to vote for Biden because he would be pro climate change. And fast forward to 2.5 years later.
Oh, we'll get there. So here's the lovely Sabrina Salvati. She just watched the same video we did, and she has some words to say.
Oh, good union jobs.
I'm all for union jobs. I'm all for that. But there are other ways that you can create those jobs without destroying the environment, without destroying people's communities? Are these the jobs that Joe Biden's been talking about? We created all these jobs. These the jobs? What good are those jobs if you're going to be underwater? This is just all about short-term profits. It's all about greed, corporate greed. They are willing to throw our future away so that they can make a short buck. How many times are they going to continue to screw younger people over? This is our future. First, it was the student loan debt. He messed that up. Then it was, we're going to codify Roe v. Wade. Not happening. Then it was, I passed climate legislation and he's doing this behind your back. How many times are we going to let them just sit here and destroy our future? How many times is our government going to allow for indigenous land to be corrupted, to be destroyed? How many pipelines they're going to put through? There was this whole push to stop Line 3. Remember this? So you have the indigenous communities that have constantly been affected. Let's go back to Standing Rock. Let's remember that as well. And you have Black communities that are constantly affected. They don't care because they see these groups as disposable. And that's what this really comes down to, guys. You would never see them try to do this in Beverly Hills. You don't see them trying to put pipelines through wealthy white neighborhoods. It does not happen. They attack the poor, they attack those that are vulnerable, and they attack the working class. And those are usually communities of color. And this is how you end up with environmental pollution in those areas. If you leave the South End and you walk across the street to Roxbury, your life expectancy drops by 30 years for the people who live on that side.
So just to give some context, because she's talking about Boston, I used to live in Boston.
That's that island, right? That's that island they like rebuilt over a landfill, right?
Is it
what's that Boston Island out there? Rebuilt?
It's not an island, but parts of Boston is landfill, yes.
Yeah.
That's called Back Bay.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So
my Fallout knowledge, man. It's video game knowledge of Boston. That's you know what I mean?
But Roxbury, at least when I lived there, was more like lower income, but when I was leaving 2017, it was in the process of being gentrified. The South End is gentrified, and that's more known now as the LGBTQ community. So yeah, so just to kind of give context there. So Roxbury is more of the lower income, part of the lower income community in Boston, but so that's what Savvy is saying. Once you cross into Roxbury.
When was Standing Rock? Was that Biden or was that
Obama?
No, I mean Obama? That was Obama, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not even Trump. Trump wasn't even in office yet, right?
Right.
Okay. Just making sure.
I believe so. Check in the chat if I'm correct or if I'm wrong.
It's close, right? It's like during that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But
so
anyway.
And part of that has to do with the environmental pollution.
So Savvy, they're killing it.
Project will create, quote, good union jobs.
I'm trying to hit the full screen on the video here. You know. Excuse me. So I hope people don't know this guy. But this is the best Frank, who's a terrible person on Twitter. But this is why we need to get money out of politics. Every Republican and most Dems receive significant money from the fossil fuel industry. And your Sunrise Movement, with President Biden officially approved the Willow project instead of sticking to his own climate goals and listening to the millions of young people who carried the party for the last 3 election cycles. POTUS is leading the fossil fuel industry have their way, is letting the fossil fuel industry have their way. But this guy definitely pushed for him. I guarantee you. This is one of those G-Hive, you know, stuff. So I just put up a tweet myself that said, push them left, they said. Push them left. So and just in case people forgot about Sunrise Movement, people need to go look up a Substack from Robbie Yeager about their billionaire funding. But it just essentially states that the environment-focused dark money group has steadily built themselves as a youth-led grassroots organization. The problem is they're receiving a ton of billionaire funding, right? And Yeager lays that all out in depth, but I just want people to realize that, you know, Sunrise Movement also compromised. But they did talk about people on Twitter, right, and TikTok, right? Let's see if I can.
Right.
I'll just unfull screen and do this. Like this individual, and they got pretty upset, and I can't blame them.
Hey Biden, remember when you promised to be a climate leader? Hey Biden, remember when you promised to be a climate leader? So then why did you just approve the Willow project? You just effectively lied and slapped the faces of millions of young people who voted for you, who put you in office. Good luck gaining our trust back after you just approved the biggest oil project on federal land in history. There are consequences when you underestimate young people. The Republicans found that out in the midterms last year, and now the DNC and the Biden administration is going to find out what happens when you fuck around with my generation.
I'm not so sure about that though. Because God forbid that we have Trump or DeSantis.
Right.
And then they're going to be like, but we have to vote for Biden or whoever it is because
yes,
they're just so much worse. So we'll see how far that is.
But if we vote him in, we can push him left afterwards. Oh, you know, it's almost like withholding your vote might be useful. Speaking of doing that, INN member Joe says, I'm totally with this kid. Ukraine flag, Ukraine flag, Ukraine flag, needle, 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 needle.
So folks, on the Willow project, I know a lot of people are upset about it, me being one of them, but what I have not liked seeing is people saying that they're never going to support Joe Biden ever again, and that they never support the Democrats because of this. And I don't think that's the right mindset, because President Biden has been the best president in American history on climate. He has signed countless bills and executive orders aimed at protecting our environment. He's protected communities from extreme heat and dangerous climate impacts, lowering cooling costs for communities, expanding offshore wind opportunities and jobs. He also passed the most significant and largest climate investment in U.S. history. So in my view, this one setback doesn't erase all of the progress. And if we don't support the Democrats who are pro-climate, what's the alternative? The Republicans and Donald Trump who have destroyed our environment?
I'm Michael Jordan. Stop it. Get some help.
He probably doesn't have student loans.
No, or anything else, or still believing.
I mean, that you're paying for.
still believing like.
But you know what though? But we make fun, but I feel like watch next year, watch in the summer fall. Like this will be the attitude of many people.
Yep.
You know, make fun of him now, and we know he wrong. But like, and people are mad now. But like, depending who the Republican candidate's going to be, more people are going to start talking like this.
There's a lot of time between here and election time. I'm just saying.
Right.
I am just saying. So what?
So folks, on
no. So this was on March 11th, right? Here's one of our favorites over at Common Dreams, Brett Wilkins, right? And he was talking about the Friday before March 11th, which was when? March 11th, the 10th.
March 11th,
the day before
was Saturday.
Yeah. So the 10th, right? And this was about when people were starting to get upset about this approval going through, right? And that the decision's already been made to approve it. Okay. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre on Friday denied reports that U.S. President Joe Biden would imminently approve the Willow project, saying no final decisions have been made on the highly controversial $8 billion ConocoPhillips oil drilling endeavor in North Alaska, slammed by critics as a climate catastrophe. Anyone who says that there has been a final decision is wrong, Jean-Pierre told reporters Friday evening after outlets including Bloomberg, CNN, and the New York Times reported that the Biden administration would greenlight what would be the single largest oil operation in the United States. So, 1 week later.
One eternity later.
Right? Biden denounced for appalling approval of Willow oil project. That was a week later. This is March 13th. So that was on that Friday, the 10th.
Right.
Okay. On the 13th.
So after the weekend.
The next weekend, this has been approved. Monday. This has been approved. Shout out for Indy Left for cluing me in on that little nugget on this story. He was like, here, you're going to need this, and hands me an article. And I was like, okay, great. Great. So Kenny Stansel, another guy at Common Dreams, there's simply no justification for President Biden's decision to approve a massive new oil drilling scheme that will lead to decades of air and climate pollution, said one critic. So, Joseph Biden on Monday greenlighted a massive oil drilling project on federal land in Alaska, eliciting outrage from climate activists who say the administration's accompanying restrictions on oil and gas leasing in the region cannot make up for the destruction set to be unleashed by the approved Willow project. Progressives sought for months to dissuade Biden from approving ConocoPhillips' $8 billion Willow project, noting that it can enable the production of more than 600 million barrels of crude oil over 30 years. In all of that, oil is burned, roughly 280 million metric tons of heat-trapping carbon dioxide. Emissions will be spewed into the atmosphere at a time when United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres warns that the planet is reaching a point of no return. It's been past that almost. I've heard climate scientists saying that for a minute. So, there's a simple no justification for President Biden's decision to approve a massive. Did I just read that? No.
No.
I think I did. That was at the alt text. Executive Director Winona Hodder said in a statement, right? This decision is part of a disturbing and disappointing trend with this White House, Hunter continued. President Biden refuses to take the necessary actions to rein in climate catastrophe while issuing rhetoric that professes concern for the existential threat that we all face. He cannot have it both ways. Promoting clean energy development is meaningless if we continue to allow corporations to plunder and pollute as they wish. President Biden refuses to take the necessary actions to rein in climate catastrophe while issuing rhetoric that professes concern for the existential threat that we all face, which I just read, and what the New York Times described as a bid to temper criticism over the Willow decision and, as one administration official put it, to form a firewall to limit future fossil fuel development in the region, which is what? So that's one of their excuses, Collin. Is that we're also trying to stop it everywhere else here. Like that's gonna matter. Anyway, Biden announced restrictions on offshore oil lease sales in the Arctic Ocean and across Alaska's North Slope. Well, the U.S. Department of the Interior, can you look up who the head of that is, please? Said it would issue new rules. Do what? Interior.
What do you say?
Who's head of Interior? Department of Interior. If chat can look that up, or you, or Biden announced restrictions on offshore oil lease said it would issue new rules to block oil and gas leasing in more than 13 million of the 23 million acres that form the National Petroleum Reserve, Alaska, where the Willow project is located. But given the
Interior Secretary Deb Haaland.
Okay, and I'm betting she's been connected to, I'm sure, a load of environmentally friendly oil refining companies. From New Mexico.
I have to
Holland.
She's Native American. Oh, she's a Native American at that too.
Okay.
So,
like Elizabeth Warren Native American or like actual
no,
Native
I think
American?
she's more legit than Elizabeth Warren is.
Okay.
I have to look up more into her, but
cool. So warnings from even the relatively conservative International Energy Agency that new fossil fuels projects are incompatible with averting the worst consequences of the planetary emergency. Climate justice campaigners rejected the president's attempts to soften the blow of his Willow approval by announcing new protections for areas surrounding the extraction site. It's insulting that Biden thinks this will change our minds about the Willow project. Critson Monsell, a senior attorney at the Center for Biological Diversity, said in a statement, protecting one area of the Arctic so you can destroy another doesn't make sense, and it won't help the people and wildlife who will be upended by the Willow project. We need to protect the entire Arctic and stop building massive oil and gas developments that will continue to greenhouse gas emissions for years to come. Will contribute to, gotcha. Biden approved Willow knowing full well that it'll cause massive and irreversible destruction, which is appalling, said Monsell. People and wildlife will suffer, and extracting and burning more fossil fuels will warm the climate even faster. Biden has no excuse for letting this project go forward in any form. New Arctic drilling makes no sense and will fight hard to keep ConocoPhillips from breaking ground. No, you won't. No, you won't. You're not fighting hard now. Anyway, well, I mean, you are. I thought that was administration saying that. As the Times reported, the Biden's administration said it would approve permits for 3 drilling sites and deny 2 others, including one that would have been closest to a coastal wetland known as Teshpuk Lake. The administration also said it would deny permissions to build a road that would have led to the 4th drilling site. So, look who it is, Care Bear. You know that guy. Yeah.
My arch nemesis.
He says, I'm very disappointed in the president for approving the Willow project. Youth voter turnout was at its highest in 2020, and young folks supported him because of commitments such as no more drilling on federal land. That commitment has been broken. We deserve a livable future. What are you going to do about it? Tell us what you're going to do about it.
Right.
Like this guy is asking. Friend of the show and RBN member, Jay Buffont. So what are you going to do about it? How will you hold Biden accountable? He took billionaire money and was pro-fracking. I'm your constituent in District 10, so I want to know how you are going to defend Gen Z and younger generations from this charlatan. No strongly worded letters.
Do you want some information about Holland?
Yeah, that would be nice. She's head of the interior.
Native American.
Okay.
She is Native American, enrolled in the Laguna Pueblo tribe.
Gotcha.
Given her name, her father is Norwegian, of Norwegian descent.
Okay.
Hold on, let me pull this up real fast. So she made a statement actually last week concerning the president's fiscal year budget, 2024 budget. So the budget details, so I'm reading this from the U.S. Department of the Interior press release. The budget details a blueprint to grow the economy from the bottom up and middle out, lower costs for families, protect and strengthen Medicare and Social Security, and reduce the deficit by ensuring the wealthy and big corporations pay their fair share, all while ensuring no one makes less than $400,000 per year pays more in taxes. President Biden's proposed budget builds on the historical investments from the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act to boost our nation's economy, generating jobs and supporting local and tribal communities, building resilience to our changing climate, and managing important resources, she says. At the department, we will continue to implement our mission through a process that values close collaboration between federal, state, tribal, and local partners with an eye towards historically marginalized and underrepresented communities that must never again feel left behind. So I want to take a stab at this since just with the very little research that I did on her, but I think it's very safe to say I can make a couple of guesses. Native American, using identity politics in the guise of, oh, we're providing jobs.
Right. To my people.
For my people in particular.
Well, murdering the land.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
That's basically what this is. So, so just very quick, she was the state vote director for Native Americans in Obama's presidential re-election campaign.
Okay.
She was a chair of the Democratic Party of New Mexico Native American Caucus. She ran for lieutenant governor of New Mexico 2014. So Democrat. That's all you need to know.
Probably helped with Standing Rock too. Sounds like it. Don't know that. But anyway.
Don't know that.
His article continues. In addition to rejecting 2 of the proposed drilling sites, so they were going to be okay. The administration also announced that ConocoPhillips would return about 68,000 acres of the existing leases to the government. The Times reported officials said that they believe that would prevent the company from trying to expand oil drilling in the region beyond the Willow project. Hadn't stopped them before. Although the DOI's environmental analysis raised substantial concerns about emissions, danger to freshwater sources, and threats to migratory birds, caribou, whales, and the other animals that inhabit the region, the administration concluded that it doesn't have the legal authority to deny permits to ConocoPhillips, which has long held leases on the land in the petroleum reserve, the newspaper reported, citing 2 unnamed sources. The Revolving Door Project's climate research director, Dorothy Slater, condemned the White House for prematurely making the decision they thought courts might insist on, calling it a weak-hearted capitulation to corporate interest and historic abnegation of responsibility. The Interior Department does, in fact, have the legal authority to deny permits for a project that they have substantial concerns about, said Slater. If the case did go to court, the administration could leverage the significant resources of the Justice Department to defend their decision stridently, using every tool in their arsenal to protect the Arctic wilderness and give us a fighting chance to avoid the worst of climate change. Simply, what is executive power for, if not protecting the future of this planet, she asked. Munsell stressed that even one new oil well in the Arctic is one too many. If Biden wants to protect the Arctic, he needs to protect all of it, she added. The president has left us in the cold and missed a major opportunity to live up to his climate commitments. This project is on weak legal ground, and we're gearing up for action. Earth Justice President Abigail Dillon echoed that sentiment, telling the Times that the Biden administration's tinkering at the margins won't remedy legal failures to adjust this project outside harms, and we expect to see them in court. So yeah, how about that? Huh?
I mean, as we said, we voted for this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so this isn't, I mean, for you and I, and probably for our fam in the chat, this is not a surprise to you all, but, you know, but where in Biden's record has he proven, or Democrats in our lifetime have proven that they've actually cared for climate change besides, just maybe like incremental change here and there, but
Yep.
nothing really substantive to kind of show that they're actually serious about, as you said, as you said in the article, point of no return. So you
Yep.
would think that they will actually be a lot more aggressive in terms of ensuring that, not even for Biden, because Biden will be long dead, but like for the rest of us, that we have, a future to uphold to.
Right.
So,
Yep.
I don't know, but yeah, that's the Democrats for you. And it's surprising that even some of the more progressive ones, they're like, oh yeah, we're disappointed, but you're still going to support them now. So, means nothing to me.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. All right.
Perfect.
You ready for your thing?
I am. If I bring this up a bit, hopefully it will come up.
It went
There we
back.
go. It went back?
Yeah, just go forward one. There you go.
Okay. All right. So, Kirsten Seminar, we have not heard about her for a while. And I feel like this may, no, we've talked about her, but not often.
Yeah.
But, where there's Sinema, there's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But we know Sinema is actually the face behind the actual corruption that is taking place. So, surprise, surprise, she's connected to Silicon National Bank. Those of you in the chat will probably know all of that situation by now. So this article, once again, double duty for Brett. And this is what he wrote. Gallego says lobbyists bought Sinema's vote that resulted in bank collapse. When bank lobbyists asked me to weaken bank regulations, I said no. When they asked Senator Sinema, she asked how much and voted yes, said the Democratic Arizona congressman who is running for Sinema's Senate seat. So basically, he's her challenge right now in Arizona. So anyway, Brett continues. Democratic Arizona Congressman Ruben Gallego on Tuesday accused Senator Kirsten Sinema, who he hopes to oust from the U.S. Senate next year, of playing a major role in the Silicon Valley Bank collapse by taking campaign contributions from lobbyists that represented the bank and then opted to deregulate it. Political reports that Sinema was one of numerous members of Congress to take campaign donations from Bank Square Group, which once counted Silicon Valley Bank among its clients. In 2018, Sinema, then a Democrat serving in the House of Representatives, received more than $8,000 from lobbyists before she voted for Senator Mike Crapo's Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief, and Consumer Protection Act. So that's the act basically that, essentially deregulated this bank. So she sided with Republicans in order to ensure that. Before falling down to loosen bank safeguards, Sinema received over $100,000 from big banks. Among those who bought Sinema's vote were 3 Silicon Valley Bank lobbyists that maxed out, Rubin said in a campaign email. Simply put, she voted to give the banks free rein, and I did not. The SVB collapse is a direct result of Kirsten Sinema's choice to side with big banks over everyday Arizonans. Dubbed the Bank Lobbyist Act by critics, the law rolled back the Dodd-Frank Act, which was passed in the wake of the 2007-08 global financial meltdown, and exempted banks with between $50 billion and $250 billion in assets from rigorous stress testing and capital requirements. Both Silicon National Bank and Signature Bank, which are both now under federal government control, qualify for the medium-sized bank exemption. Sinema argued at that time that these important reforms will help protect the financial security of Arizonans young and old as they plan for home ownership, a college education, or stable retirement. Gallego asked Monday, what's the difference between Senator Sinema and me? When bag lobbyists asked me to weaken bag regulations, I said no. When they asked Senator Sinema, she asked how much and voted yes. Now we're all going to pay for her mistake. On Twitter Tuesday, Gallego wrote that the Silicon National Bank collapse is the direct result of Kyrsten Sinema's choice to side with big banks over everyday Arizonans. FEC's records and public lobbying reports showed that the free SVB lobbyists maxed out donations to Sinema ahead of the 2018 Dodd-Frank rollback, which led to the collapse, Gallego continued, referring to the Federal Election Commission. Sinema is in the pocket of Wall Street, and her vote put hardworking Arizonans, their families, and their small business at risk of another 2008-like meltdown. Arizona's deserve a leader in the Senate who will fight for them, not Wall Street, he added. Sinema is not that person, and Arizonans know it. Sinema was far from alone in taking campaign cash from SVB's lobbyists and Political Action Committee. We'll get to that in a moment. As Politico's Haley Hughes, Jessica Piper, and Holly Otterbein note, between 2017 and 2022, Silicon Valley Bank's PAC gave more than $50,000 to the campaigns of nearly 24 senators and representatives, according to the filings with the Federal Election Commission. The donations largely went to members, Republicans and Democrats, who served on relevant committees, including the House Financial Services Committee or Senate Finance Committee. Senator Mark Warner and Representative Pat McHenry received the most from the PAC, each bringing in $7,500 over this 6-year period. SVB CEO Greg Becker also made maximum individual donations to the campaigns of Warner and Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer during the 2022 cycle, the reporters add, citing FEC records. Sinema, who has been accused of cartoonish-level corruption for coziness with corporations and lobbyists, was exonerated on Tuesday's Daily Beast article by Mike Daly, who called the senator a wolf for Wall Street. Daly took aim at Sinema's Sunday statement, asserting that the federal government must now ensure those responsible for the SVB collapse are held accountable while maintaining stability for all Americans who rely on our banking system. Sinema needs only step in front of a mirror to find a prime suspect, wrote Daly. Whether she's calling herself a Democrat or independent, her voting record is the same, and it marks her as a shill for the banking industry. Any thoughts so far, Reef?
Well, I mean, this is essentially, they were all taking money from these banks pretty much, right? You know, I think you probably have it later, but I think I saw Gavin Newsom was directly taking from SVB.
Well, you know what? Let's play a game.
Okay.
In the chat. I feel a little feisty today. I'm curious. So it mentioned, so as I said, Sinema is not the only one that's taken money from Silicon National Bank. Who would you guess in the chat also took money from SCB? So put your so Reef, I don't think you saw it, but name a name of who you think.
I mean, we're in California, so Nancy probably is involved. Gavin, I saw. I don't know, it's also a tech startup, so it could be any New Yorker, it could be Mitch McConnell, it could be like, you know.
So your usual cast of characters. Okay. Yeah. Let me know in the chat, who you think. But I will get to Gallego in a second because he's Sinema's challenge right now, or planning to be.
Right.
Here's the thing with him. Because people are like, oh, he's so progressive or whatever else and blah, blah, blah. And I remember checking him out a while back. He's just as corporate as everybody. Well, he's a Democrat, so he's just as corporate as everybody else. So I really feel like he's only saying this now because it's easy to say anything against Sinema right now.
Yeah.
But assuming if he beats her and he ends up in the Senate, he'll do the exact same shit that Sinema is doing, guaranteed.
Gotcha.
So that's just my take on it. I just feel like, as I said, it's just easy for him to call her out, but he's a part of the Democratic Party as well. So that being said, so I had to look into open secrets. So again, this information is public. Okay. So this is what I pulled out just before chat. So the contributions that you see here, this is this year. No, actually last year, 2022.
Gotcha.
So Silicon National Bank made over $50,000 in contributions last year. So if you zoom out, I will show you. And again, this is from last year. So I didn't go like real deep because I think they have records up until 2014. I just took it from last year. So let's see who took some money from this financial group. So you probably have to zoom in. So Mark Warner, Chucky Boy Schumer, of course. Stu Barnes Israel, not sure who he is. See that next name? Pastor Warnock. Pastor Warnock took some money. Josh Harder, Cora Newman, Gregory Meeks, the DNC Services Corporation.
Oh, of course. That sounds like an evil corp right there.
Right. Adam Laxalt, Dave McCormick against Better.
Oh shit, the one at the bottom. Okay, go ahead.
Recognize this name? Mr. John
Fetterman.
I had a stroke. Fetterman.
Oh no. So hold on. So we got Schumer.
So the ones we know: Schumer, Warnock, and Fetterman. The ones that we know and love, right?
Dave McCormick of the Spice Mogul Empire, McCormick. But I don't know.
But there's a few more. Again, this was from last year.
Okay, this is just from last year, so you could go back like even farther. So we got
go back even farther. So
the Massachusetts Democratic State Committee, the Senate Majority PAC,
Val Demings, Sharon Beasley, Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, Tim Ryan,
the Lincoln Project.
The Lincoln
what do we
Project.
know at the Lincoln Project? Who do we know at the Lincoln Project? What's the one that Saga's friend is part of?
No, that's Hudson Institute, right?
Okay. I think
Marshall. That's Marshall, I believe you're thinking of.
Yeah. Hassan Maggie, Kelly Mark.
Okay.
Campaign committee. Go ahead.
Committee. So
Adam Schiff.
Didn't take that much.
Mike Franken.
Tom
Nelson. Joseph Biden.
Although, if you look, there's a negative balance. So I'm wondering if he gave them money.
Might have.
That's what I don't know. I've never seen that before.
He might have given them money, which is even weirder.
He gave them money.
Okay.
So the question is, why would he give them money?
Yeah.
So, so not some surprises.
Yep.
But given that this is the Democratic Party, this really shouldn't be a surprise. But point being, and this was a short segment, just, Kyrsten Sinema is getting the blame, per usual. But she's just the face of the corruption that we see in the Democratic Party. She's a willing participant. And she's basically a cop block for the rest of them who are doing the same shit. So really, my thing is for Gallego is fine to call her out. What about the rest of them? Because it seems like you did your research on her in terms of figuring out all of this information regarding her. Why not call out the rest of the Democratic Party? Because you want to do the same. As I said, you want to do the same shit. It's easy to call the one that you're running against, just to get her seat. But once you get her seat, you're going to do the same corruption as well. So really, you're bullshit in terms of finding in the guise of, oh, I want to help the people in Arizona. No, you just want to do the same shit so you can do the same. You just want her out so you can do the same shit and then be just as corrupt as the rest of these goons.
Yep. Terrible.
Yeah. So, well,
shame.
Well,
shame.
Well, the slightly good. Well, actually, this is these were the bad stories. I feel like we've just been on a tear as of late. Actually, reporting depressing stories.
Yeah.
Now, at least these last two are a little more hopeful.
Yeah,
right?
I think there's some wizardry at work, as always, but
I promise I would say at least for yours, right?
Yeah, a little bit. So Illinois, governor recently announced mandatory paid leave, right? I should know, this is my story. So yeah, Illinois governor signs bill guaranteeing workers paid leave. Illinois law now allows workers to accrue paid leave to use for any reason of the employee's choosing. Okay?
Right.
So this is by Sharon Zhang over at Truth Out. So millions of workers in Illinois are now guaranteed the right to take paid leave for any reason they choose after Governor J.B. Pritzker signed a bill into law on Monday mandating paid time off for nearly all workers in the state. The law, passed by the democratically led state legislature in January, allows employees in Illinois to accrue time off based on hours worked, with workers gaining 1 hour per 40 hours worked.
So wait, so you get an hour a week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. For a standard work week, right?
Right. So
It's all
a
about
year
geometry.
you get 52 hours, so that would be equivalent of two days. Well, no, not 2 days. Not 2 days. Assuming if you do like a 8-hour work week, then that would be like what? 6 days.
Yeah.
2.5 days. A year.
Yes, a year.
Okay. All right. Continue.
I think, right? Someone do the math for us. We're bad at math.
It's about 6. That's about 6.5 days a year.
Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. With workers gaining 1 hour per 40 hours worked. Okay. It allows workers to use this time for any reason of the employee's choosing and mandates that workers aren't required to provide documentation or reasoning for the leave. Okay. So working families face so many challenges, and it's been my mission to alleviate all those burdens in any way I can, said Pritzker, a Democrat, at a press conference ahead of the bill signing. Pritzker emphasized that the law is a win not only for workers, but also for employees who will see benefits from their workers having the flexibility to take care of personal issues without the stress of missing pay or facing discipline. Only 2 other states have similar laws mandating paid leave for any reason, making Illinois one of the states with the most worker-friendly policies on the issue. Maine was the first state to pass a law mandating paid leave for workers in 2019, while Nevada's governor signed a similar law shortly after. Illinois is the largest state with guaranteed paid leave. While both Maine and Nevada's laws allow exemptions for businesses with a smaller workforce. However, Illinois' bill affects businesses of all sizes. Some workers are left out of the Illinois law, including seasonal workers and college students in part-time temporary jobs. So like it allows exemptions for businesses with a smaller workforce. So that means the smaller your business, the less this will affect you.
Yeah, right.
In those states, right? Where Illinois didn't put that in. So that's definitely going to affect smaller businesses more.
Right.
So only a small minority of states in the U.S. guaranteed worker paid leave. Just 14 states in Washington, D.C. guaranteed workers paid sick time. Just 14 states guarantee them paid sick time. Okay? With a dearth of federal laws mandating paid leave for workers, many workers aren't allowed time for sick, family, or vacation leave. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, only 77% of workers in the private sector had access to paid sick leave in 2022, while 79% had access to paid vacation. Low-wage workers are disproportionately affected by a lack of paid sick leave policies, with over 60% without paid sick leave. An even smaller portion of the workforce has access to paid family leave. Only 24% of private sector workers have access to paid family leave last year. So, guaranteed paid leave has come into the spotlight in recent years, as the U.S. is the only wealthy country in the world in which workers aren't guaranteed family or sick leave. President Joe Biden and Democrats pushed for universal paid sick and family leave early on in Biden's presidency, but the measure has largely been dropped in Congress, and it faces opposition from Republicans and conservatives like Senators Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. Biden has once again called for Congress to pass legislation guaranteeing workers paid sick and family leave, but the proposal is dead on arrival with a Republican-controlled House. Sick leave was also a focus during a recent stalemate between rail companies and their workers, who, as of last year, had 0 days of paid leave. Regardless of the reason, some rail workers have since won the right to paid sick leave, but the issue of intense scheduling pressures still remains for many in the industry. So, thoughts, Care Bear, so far?
Not enough, as I was saying in the chat. Not enough. Like, considering that the railroad workers were initially pushing for 15 to 20 sick days a year.
Yes.
And it went down to, what is it now, 7? You know, what if you have a kid? What if you have a kid or several kids? Like,
see, and that's what Bernie dropped down to as well, is like 7. And then someone else was offering 4. Like the CEO was like, no, I'll do 4. Like, no.
Like my coworker, my grade level colleague has 2 kids. Like, she's probably gone through it's basically like whenever one of her kids gets sick. Fortunately, her husband is a basketball coach at a school, so they're both essentially teachers. So basically, they're able, when one of their kids is sick, they basically take turns. You know, like. But she was out twice this week for her kids, and she's made the comment to me that like she barely has any sick time because her kids are getting sick all the time, and she can't always ask her husband to stay home. You know, so like the idea of that, and we get I get a decent amount of sick time. You know, I mean, at this point, I really don't use it because I'm rarely ever sick. But like, if you have a family and if you have a child that's sick all the time, like it averages out to 6.5 days a year. You will go through that like that. So it's not enough. Like, I can make the argument, people make it's something, but the question is the ask big enough?
Yeah.
That's what you should always ask. Is it
always
big enough?
Ask if the ass is big enough. I agree.
Yeah. And I don't think it is. Not for this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's just my take on it. It's not enough.
I agree. So in lieu of federal policy, however, some states are taking the issue into their own hands, hoping to expand the list of states with guaranteed paid leave. Last month, the Minnesota House passed a bill that would allow workers in the state to accrue paid sick leave based on hours worked. the bill is likely to pass the state Senate with a Democratic majority and be signed into law by Tim Walz. So yeah, that's it. Other places are going to try to do this as well.
Google says in chat, the military gets 30 days a year sick time of paid leave, or 2.5 days per month. Yep. And what about our government officials, federal government? How much paid leave do they get?
Probably quite a bit. Yeah.
Or unlimited, or somewhere in that vicinity. So it's the idea of like, okay, how is it that they don't work? Well, the argument is they don't work in Congress because they're supposed to fundraise.
Yeah.
You know, like for the other part of the time. But like they're more often on vacation than I am, and I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
You know, they have more vacation time than me. You know, and they get unlimited, I assume. You know, and then
Probably.
and then in Illinois they get what, like one sick day a month. You know, so not enough. Again,
and they're making it seem like a giant win, right?
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of bullshit. So I hope
that's why I brought it.
Like I hope this is a push for more. You know, like I hope that people are not necessarily satisfied with that. That this will kind of mark something that they're able to.
And this is why, when you are in the opportunity and you have the power to ask for the whole kit and caboodle. Don't just like, because they're going to continue to down pay you, and you might as well stand firm until they actually get like, like if your thing was what was it? What did they want? 30 days sick leave? Wasn't that it? Right. No, I mean the train strikes.
20.
Right. 20 days. Ask for 60. I don't care if you sound ridiculous.
Right.
Like, because then they got to come back with you with what? Like, hey, like 30 would be all right. You know, and then be like, sold. Like, let's go.
Right.
You know.
But often, and we say this in the chat, like we say this all the time, is that Democrats especially start from the compromise position, and from there it just gets less and less and less and less.
Right.
So you get way less. Like, see, I think people just, if you travel, like you need to travel to like Africa or like the Middle East where they actually haggle. You know, like to give, like the thing is we don't haggle here. It's the idea of like it's a fixed price, and that generally it's a fixed price of what you buy, and that's it. Like overseas, like you have to learn how to kind of haggle your way into getting the things that you want. But often you always start from, for you as a buyer, you always start from the extreme.
Right. You go to your lowest bid. Like, right.
And then kind of work from there to get somewhere in the middle.
Like, I'll give you $2, and they'll be like, come on, man, give me 7, you know?
Right.
Like, when it was really, they were asking everyone else for like 15, 16, you know?
Right.
Like, yeah, it's, Congress works about 140 days per year and get paid for every day. So, okay. Well,
So I work. I work about 180.
180. Good for
you. In classroom time. Like, doesn't count what I have to do outside of that, plus weekends and maybe some vacations, depending on what's going on. So but speaking of going for the kit and caboodle, I did that kind of.
Nice.
So many of you know, we did a special stream on this back in November. Yeah, November. Jesus Christ. It's like it's already middle of March already. We did a stream to raise money for my teacher advocacy group, Empower Ed. Empower Ed is basically what we do is we elevate the issues of teachers, and essentially try to bring them up for legislation, so that teachers can get some things to make their lives a little better. So I haven't mentioned this at all really, but what I've been doing for the last couple of months, I've been able to meet with DC councilmen and women. I actually talked with one today about several issues that we want to kind of have passed in a bill in terms of our city budget. So this guy in the back of me is one of our councilmen, Robert Wright, and my boss, and then like from that, like us,
President, my boss.
Worked on. We basically drafted. We basically proposed some ideas based on the research that we've been doing, and kind of said to him, and that like this is what we're proposing, and as we just talked about, we went the maximum of what we can get. Like we asked for stuff in terms of like student loan debt. We asked for stuff in terms of subsidized housing for teachers. We've asked for, extra planning time. We asked for in terms of like our teacher evaluation system. These are just some of the things that we asked, and we have big asks in terms of, trying to get something for teachers. And so obviously, they have to work with our mayor, and our mayor would not necessarily go for a lot of it. So, what he ended up with was, somewhat, I wouldn't say modified. It was ultimately what he felt that ultimately most people, including our mayor, could probably get behind in terms of, some legislation that can be included in our bill, in our budget. So for me personally, not enough, but it's a basis for me of being like, okay, we didn't start from the compromise position. We went all the way in most of these issues that we advocated for. But then it's a way for us to kind of continue fighting for the things that we actually want until we get much closer to the fullness of what we're asking for. So, but this is something, and this is local. This is local for me in terms of what I'm doing. So this is local DC politics. So again, this just kind of shows, like the power in local politics. If you're, and I admit my privilege in the way that I'm in this organization and have those connections, that I'm able to meet with councilmen like that. But that's not to say in any city or town, they should be, depending on where you live, you would have more accessibility to your councilmen, because especially since they control the budget. So you kind of need to know what they're spending your money on, your taxes on. So, but yeah, so this was kind of a little win for us. So, so you could say I helped to craft some of this legislation. So, but not really me, it's more within the context of my organization that I was able to do this for. So, so yeah, so he actually released, I knew about it for a while, but I couldn't say anything, but the bill was released today. So right now, other councilmen have to look at it, go through back and forth to see, like what, if any changes need to be made, or then like, no, whatever. But assuming everyone is on board, that they get to vote for it, and then go from there in terms of seeing if any of what we say will be included in these city's budget. So, so I did want to play the news. Oh wait, did it?
It's there.
Oh, there we go.
I'll go back.
Thank you. So I did want to play the news clip. Again, this is local news of the announcement regarding this bill. So.
DC Councilman Robert White will introduce legislation aimed at keeping teachers here in the district. Recently, the state superintendent's office revealed only 70% of teachers retained for this school year were working in the same school buildings they did the year previously. The DC Council wants to improve the state of DC's schools. That's why earlier this month, its leaders listened to testimony from parents and teachers. One big topic, staff retention.
They're not getting paid adequately.
A representative from the nonprofit education group Empower Ed read testimony from a local charter school teacher. They said they were burned out.
Because my job is too many hours and I don't think I can really have a family and also continue doing the job I'm doing.
State Superintendent Office data shows 30% of DC's teaching corps either left DC, moved to new school buildings, or changed roles this school year compared to last. That number's increased going back to 2019. Right now, DCPS says it has more than 160 teacher vacancies.
You just can't have a stable school system where you have turnover like that.
Councilmember Robert White wants to give full-time DCPS teachers 2 paid mental health days and establish a bigger, flexible schedule pilot program for teachers, among other things.
What I find is that most teachers don't want to leave the classroom, but like the rest of us, they do have needs. If we want kids to graduate, we need teachers to remain in these schools.
Now, as we said, this legislation will be introduced Wednesday, but White said it probably won't be discussed substantively by the council for a while due to the upcoming budget hearings. With the very latest from Northwest, John Henry, WUSA 9.
Man, he hits that outro hard. Oh, the WBSU 9. Like, damn. Let me make sure you got that.
But yeah, anyway, I want to read. So there's an article attached to this that gives a little bit more information. So again, this is local for me. So actually, I'll go back. Go back a lot, apparently. Wait. Wow, we really went that
How
far.
How did it get that far? There's the video.
Oh, there's a video, but let's do this first. So, DC Council member to introduce new bill to recruit, retain teachers. Data shows only 70% of teachers in DC were retained to work in the same role in the same school building this school year compared to the last. So this was written by John Henry, and he writes, no. Oh, I went backward. That's why.
No, go the yes.
There
Warmer.
There.
Red hot.
All right. On Wednesday, at-large DC Councilmember Robert Wright is expected to introduce a bill that would provide 2 paid mental health days, not classified as sick leave, to all full-time educators in the District of Columbia, and require the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, OSSE, to establish a flexible scheduling pilot program. In early March, OSSE revealed only 70% of teachers in DC were retained to work in the same role in the same building this year compared to last. The data showed the retention percentage was 74% from 2020 to 2021 to 2021 to 2022. It was 81% the year prior to that. You can't just have a stable school system when you have turnover like that, White said. White's legislation will also require DCPS to provide a wellness coordinator in certain schools identified to have a high number of at-risk students and a high teacher turnover rate. It also calls for the creation of a fair paraprofessional compensation task force and for DCPS to conduct exit surveys for teachers where it provides the results to the public annually. So I want to pause there for a second. So essentially part of this legislation includes, as I said, a wellness coordinator for certain schools. But it also includes a paraprofessional task force. So paraprofessionals basically are assistant teachers.
Yeah.
They get paid shit.
ESE, ESL.
So, yeah.
You know.
And many times paraprofessionals, not always, are usually from DC. You know, born and raised, you know, worked the system, working very hard. You know, these are essentially assistant teachers, but depending on the school, they work as if like they're leads and they don't get compensated accordingly. And typically they get paid, I believe, and I get this percentage right, but I think about 25% less
Okay.
than like a teacher on an entry level. So they're making way below the minimum wage, what's considered a livable wage in DC. So I was like, substitute teachers get paid more than paraprofessionals do.
Gotcha.
Not to say that substitutes get paid a lot either, but you know, the idea that paraprofessionals are in the school every day with a lead, and often, usually, not always, but sometimes with at-risk children, you know, doing the work of a lead and get paid less, you know, I think is insane. And I understand it because I used to be one. So the idea of a task force is to do some research, although I don't feel there's really much research to be done, to determine what would be the most equitable for paraprofessionals, so that, you know, they stay, but potentially from that they're able to get the credentials that they need, that they can hopefully be lead teachers, you know, ideally in DCPS.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of make that clarification as well. So to continue, thank you. Yeah, I read that. We're just trying to legislate what teachers are saying they need to stay in our system, White said. We want kids to graduate. We need teachers to stay in these schools. The issue of teacher retention has been long discussed in the district. The DC Council listened to testimony from teachers and education experts repeatedly during a performance oversight hearing on education on March 1st. The nonprofit education organization, PowerEd, that's my organization, read testimony from an anonymous charter school teacher in DC who said they were burnt out. Because my job is too many hours and I don't think I can really have a family and also continue to doing the job I'm doing, Yvette Alanano of EmpowerEd read. Washington Teachers Union President Jacqueline Pogue Lyons said she was happy the legislation would be introduced to the council, as retention is a major problem of the union thinks about daily. She added she is excited about the possibility of teachers having wellness days in the district. She also said there needs to be more transparency around staff exit surveys. We're also looking forward to teachers having more flexibility in their schedule, Pogue Lyons said. We're hopeful that will be a way for getting and keeping teachers. WUSA 9 contacted DCPS for comment regarding the state of the school system's retention efforts. DCPS provided the following statement. At DC Public Schools, we believe that talent is a key lever for educational equity, and we're focused on the recruitment, selection, development, and retention for the most talented teachers and school leaders in the country. As a district, we work diligently to ensure our school staff have the tools, development, and resources to be successful and have robust strategies in place to retain valuable members of our educated workforce. Thanks to Mayor Bowser's commitment to education evidence through consistent investment, we're excited to have agreements with our school's principals and teachers unions that reflects higher salaries and a fair contract. We take action to retain our returnable talent and attract more of the best to the system. Just a pause there. What does that sound like to you?
Flowery language that's not necessary.
Yes.
I mean, it seems like a lot of platitudes and, you know, Mayor Bowser, who you talked about, is not great on anything.
No.
Has she had a commitment to education, Collin? Mayor Bowser?
Not to public schools.
Oh, okay.
Not to public schools.
Private schools, though. Okay.
Not private schools necessarily. Charter schools.
Sure.
And you can probably guess why.
Because they make her money.
They make her money, you know, and, you know, corporations. So, you know, but the idea, and I forgot to say this, the idea of having an exit survey is because we don't really know why teachers leave. A lot of the data that we have is kind of piecemeal together. But the idea of like, if you know why teachers leave, you're better able to adjust as to, you know, what you need to do. That information is not really, you know, available.
Yeah.
So, you know, so they can hide behind the fact of, oh, teachers leave for whatever reason they can kind of think of. without the actual idea of like, these percentage of teachers are leaving for this reason, you know, and often just given my work on the ground, you know, teachers are leaving, and especially given the pandemic, because, you know, it's hard work. And as I mentioned, you know, in previous streams, we had to fight for 3 years to get an updated contract, you know, and now coming in the summer, we have to go at it again for our next contract that should start theoretically in September. So, you know, so a lot, but mostly it's the idea of like, you know, just doing our research, the data that we collected was majority of teachers, they're burnt out. And, you know, especially given the pandemic, we had it. I mean, I hated it personally, you know, like in terms, you know, of teaching virtually little kids.
Right.
But the idea that I had a little more flexibility in my day to actually do stuff, you know, like was an attractive model for many teachers, especially if you have a family. Yeah, it was hard, but you have more flexibility to actually, if you needed to do like take some care of personal business, you had the ability to do that. But the idea of flexible scheduling, and Gabrielle and I will talk more about that in the interview that will premiere tomorrow. The idea of flexible scheduling is the idea that it allows teachers to be able to pursue professional development of their choice. It gives time for teachers to actually have office hours to actually meet with students. It provides opportunities for students, especially if they're older, you know, to do like an internship or something like that. Hell, maybe give them like an opportunity to have a taste of the job that they're thinking of doing once they're going to college. You know, doesn't that sound like nice? You know, rather than going to college and trying to figure out what you're going to do for the first 2, 3, 4 years, you know, of your time there. So it's just more of an opportunity for teachers to have more quality time in terms of things that they need to do around their students, whether it is, you know, meeting with them or like professional development or, you know, or if you need to go to the doctor, then you have the means to do that. And then for children to actually have more of a holistic approach in regards to, you know, their development, you know, having, you know, participate in some type of extracurricular activity, like more long-term. So it could be music, it could be the arts. So it gives more of opportunities for like, you know, different programs and organizations to be able to come in and support the work that teachers are doing, you know, in school. So that's what we talk about in regards to in basically flexible scheduling. So it's not just like, oh, teachers teach virtually. No, it's the idea of, though it could be that depending on the school, but it's mostly the idea of giving teachers some built-in time within their week or day so that they have more quality time to actually pursue the things that will best help their students. And that can, as I said, that can vary of various things. But rather having this kind of be this rigid idea of like, you know, you have to do this at this time, which may not always fit depending on the schedule, and especially if you have a family, you know, or if you wanted to take some actual learning development that will require you to actually, you know, might have to take some time off, but being able to do that more on your own time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. You have some more, right?
Yeah, I have a little bit more. But yeah, again, so all of that, you're right. I do believe this is all flowery language, but it's always focused on the money. It's like, we have the money, but it's like, you know, as I say to people, money might be good to attract people, but that's not going to necessarily make them stay
it's
there.
not all about teacher pay, right?
Right. No. And for me, it's like, no. And for many of my colleagues who have been left the profession within the last few years, they will tell you it was not about the money. More often than not, it was about
like being able to have a
conditions.
library in your classroom,
Right.
or being able to,
Right.
outside teaching, or, any of those things that might make you stay as a teacher when you could be going to charter schools making far better money,
Right.
So
Yeah.
no, couldn't agree more.
So anyway, DCPS recently negotiated a new contract with the Washington Teachers Union. According to the system, union members will receive a retention bonus of 4%, while educators in spots that have proven hard to fill will receive a $1,500 retention bonus. Contract also provides members performing key duties two $1,500 stipends. All union members will receive a stipend. It wasn't much.
To purchase, dude,
It wasn't much.
1,500.
I think it
My
was
mom
like,
spent
no, it
like
was like,
$4,000 like in a year, easy.
yeah, the stipend was increased from like 200 to 250. That's like,
Oh my god,
that's chicken. You can barely buy anything with $250 for your classroom.
yeah, like she spent like $30 in pencils, like.
Yes. Yeah, I spent God knows how much money over the last 9 years, like buying stuff for my students, probably in the thousands at this point.
Yeah.
But then when I write it up for taxes, I only get like $250 a year. So yeah, so you notice that they don't give any specifics because it's not that great.
No.
But anyway, we have one of the worst rates of retention in the country, Pokeline said. That's why we're excited about the contract we just received. But even with that, with the contract and the money, because we get paid well relatively, but given, a high standard of living, DC is actually the worst in terms of, living for teachers because everything is so expensive. So it doesn't account, and that often doesn't account for inflation. So we're actually the worst in terms of, like pay in that regard, if that makes any sense. Yeah, so school, Google, I'm just reading your tweets. Sorry. The Department of Education has spent $1 billion
on charter schools.
On charter waste and fraud. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to speak ill will of charter schools in terms of teachers who are actually working there and actually doing the damn thing. But the whole system around charter schools is
corrupt.
And I used to work for one. So
yeah, yep. There's ones in Florida that literally aren't a school. That like aren't a school, like it was like a nightclub. Anyway,
yeah. I think that's it. So
good.
So yeah,
next week,
small win.
Next week.
Well, not this week. Not this.
No, this.
Tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow.
Tomorrow, this. So again, I just gave you a taste of what we about this article, but I go more on depth on some of the issues that we actually advocated for in DC for teachers. So this is my interview with Gabrielle DeBose. It will premiere tomorrow at 9 Eastern time in the morning. So please check that out. Gabrielle and Reef was able to man the board, and Gabrielle is great. And so definitely watch that interview. But I say that because this is kind of the example that I want to set in terms of talking a lot about local politics and how you have the biggest effect in local politics. So this is just an example of that. One example, so I don't want to claim like it's easy for people to do what I'm doing. I'm just picking something that I love, which is teaching, and using that as my lane to actually try and make change. So, and being able to do that locally here. So thanks, Reed. So yeah, definitely check it out and support us and Gabrielle. This was our first interview, like as far as independent media, and she was great. And then on Friday, also at 9, you and Indy had an interview with the amazing
Gordon Dimmack. Lovely dude.
So
great on Assange. We talked about UK censorship. We talked about the No to NATO rally he attended. We talked about that's another anti-war rally we supported. There we talked about some Seymour Hersh, and there's some good stuff in there. So go check that out. Tomorrow, Friday, Friday, 9 p.m.
Friday.
So 9 p.m. Eastern. So check that out.
That St. Patty's Day. So make sure you don't get too drunk.
Yeah.
Whatever your plans are over St. Patty's Day weekend.
Yeah.
Anything else that we need to announce? So
Friday, Tara Reid has another stream, so stay tuned for the channel for that. We'll see who shows up for that. She hasn't confirmed guests yet, but Sunday, how did we miss that? With me and Indy. Saturday, go check out Roar Media. Oz and Shanda, I think, do a thing over there Saturday nights. So go check that out. They hate if you go watch their stream. They despise people watching their stuff. So, make sure to go piss them off. But
right.
Otherwise,
Crab has a show of sorts, I would say. I guess on Mondays now.
Okay.
Around 9, I think. So I'm sure he will mention that, or we will mention that.
The BigMadCrab
on the Twitter.
The biggest, the maddest.
Yeah, he said he's had a couple of episodes talking about different topics. So definitely check him out. And then look out for our clips of this show during the next few days, and we'll be back live next Wednesday.
Yep.
So
go share us, like all the stuff, find all the links to all the members right there at indienews.network. Right, it's in the description below. Links to all the articles are in the description below if you want to check those out. What else?
Let us know what guests you would like to have. Buy some merch. Where at? I forgot.
It is indiemedia.shop, I think. Indienews.shop. That's what it is.
We need to put that.
It's in the go on the indienews.network. It's linked in there as well.
Also,
as all of our things
tag
are.
us and let us know. We're trying to think of guests that you would like to see here. We reached out to a couple of people. Haven't responded to us yet, but let us know who would you like for us to interview or be a guest host. We've been actually very fortunate in a year that we've had great guests, but we definitely want to have more people, and hopefully more people like you who need to have a platform to kind of share about different things. So, let us know.
Let us know
on our Twitters.
Anyway,
and we'll try.
I think that's it. So, as always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Good night, everyone. See you soon.
We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.